Into our big conversations this morning, and I mentioned that I've been joined just before we went on that break. We've been joined by private legal practitioner as well, Christian Malmhesi, as well as Austin Braco Powers, all on the phone lines with us as we get into part two of our big conversations. This time centering on the Speaker and Parliament's decision to proceed with the vetting of Baffoe-Bonnie, Paul Baffoe-Bonnie, who is the acting Chief Justice who was nominated by the President to assume substantively the position of Chief Justice in the face of a suit as filed by the former Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo. Let me start off with Christian Malmhesi. Counsel, I don't know if you heard the Speaker, but he referred the nomination to the Appointment Committee. Did he do so because the court has not sat to consider the suit or the application as filed by the former Chief Justice, hence the legislature has not been served, or it's a case of Parliament being a master of its own rules, its books being closed, and so it's proceeding with its work?
Yes, good morning to you, Marina, and to Austin and listeners alike. Indeed, it is strike law that when a constitutional body is carrying out with its work, that body, it is just not enough that an injunctive application is filed, but the court must hear it and, given the merits of it, would injunct that particular constitutional body. It is just not enough, as with the general rule where an injunction application is filed, which would mean that once the court is sub judice, as in the jurisdiction of the court has been invoked, that to an extent injuncts the person from acting until the matter is heard, and then whatever the merit of it is determined thereof, the parties would have their rights considered. But in this case, once it's a constitutional body, they have the right to continue with it unless the court has heard the matter and, like I said, determined that indeed Parliament should hold on for determination of the matter, and then they could proceed with the vetting. I understand the frustration that has visited her leadership, but unfortunately, this is the law, so there's little one can do about it.
And for you, because it's not been heard, Parliament as a constitutional body can proceed with its work. But we know that the minority, for instance, have raised quite the concern, and they've been making that made very vociferously about the processes under which the former CJ went, and her removal, a subsequent removal as issued by the President's warrant, removing her from the position of Chief Justice and a member of the bench. They cannot use this new application as a basis to want to sit out the vetting of Paul Baffoe-Bonnie because a court hasn't sat to hear it.
Yes, I mean, the reasons, the points mentioned by them, they are mostly, or all of them are contained in her leadership's application before the High Court. And indeed, the court will determine that particular application, whether it has merit or not. I mean, this as it hinges on Article 1468 and all of that. And I mean, whether her rights were fractioned against and all of that. And that's the most important thing. But the point we made that, yes, in as much as she's brought the matter before the High Court, the minority indeed, they can only vent blight of what they consider as their grievances. But I mean, any real action by them should follow the law. Or they should go to court. But I mean, less of it, it would merely be statements or dissenting opinion from their caucus, and that would be it. It would in no way, I don't see how it's going to affect the verdict because the majority lies with NDC, and definitely with politics, majority would prevail. But I don't foresee the nominee Chief Justice having any problem unless the application is served on Parliament, and same is heard and determined to injunct Parliament from acting further. Parliament will go ahead to do what it's supposed to do.
I'll come to you again on the former CJ, where she stands in all of this, having filed the application.
Sure.
and the House seeking to make progress, what her remedies possibly could be. But let me bring in Austin as well into the conversation on the same question as to whether or not he has a different opinion, because once the application has been filed for quite a while, we as young persons who are seeking to learn and understand the law knew that once somebody files an injunction, it almost presupposes that you stay the course of action until the courts can determine it.
But I think my learned brother has espoused what the position of the law is. In fact, the injunction body, particularly in another arm of government, it's really a circumscribed process, because you cannot say you are injuncting them when they are set to do their work. So the law is, I mean, there are exceptional situations, but the position of the law is that if you injunct a constitution, particularly another arm of government, and same is upheld, that will cause, in fact, it will cause a meltdown, because it means that you are bringing the activities to a standstill. So unless you're able to prove an exceptional situation, the basis of which the court must uphold it. And the position of the law is that the way we understand it, as it operates on individuals, that is private individuals, where the mere service of an application for injunction serves or stops the person from committing a particular carrying out a particular act. It does not operate, that same principle does not operate when it comes to constitutional bodies and Anton. That merely serving an injunction application does not stop a constitutional body or arm of government carrying out its work, unless the court has clearly pronounced on things. So in this case, also the court makes that determination and make an order or grant the injunction application. It does not operate to stop Parliament from going ahead into it.
But isn't this confusion coming about because of what we witnessed in the anti-LGBT case, where a number of court processes were filed, and the Parliament's hand was essentially stayed for close to a year, and then the Supreme Court subsequently said the cases were dismissed, amongst many other things. That has created in the minds of some persons the fact that, the courts can possibly stay the hand of Parliament in being able to proceed on the course of action.
However, we must hesitate in drawing power conclusions. They are not the same. In fact, I can advance that it will be in the best interest for Parliament to stay it so long as the case is before the court. But that will be an advocacy. But the position of the law is different. So if I had my own way, Parliament should not even act on the nomination of the acting Chief Justice. Why? Because of the pending application. But the position of the law is that Parliament must still go on, because Parliament is the master of its own. So, and we must do a part of this. With the LGBTQ bill, the president decided, the executive decided that they were not going to, the president decided that he was not going to assent to the bill, mainly because there are matters before the court. That was his decision. Parliament's hand was saved because the president was supposed to, if the president was not assenting to the bill, he was supposed to communicate to Parliament within 14 days. And since there was no communication to Parliament that I'm not going to assent to the bill, Parliament could not have, triggered the emergency process, because if the president refused to send to the bill, he was supposed to communicate to Parliament within 14 days. The basis of which Parliament will now consider whether there are some amendments to be made, and if so, then the Parliament will send the bill back to the President, and the bill has to be passed by two-thirds majority. And if it is done, the President has no option than to assent to the bill. These matters are circumscribed in the law. So, but in the jail bill issue, the President did not communicate to the Parliament that I was not going to assent because of the bill has issues. But he said he's not going to act on the bill because of the pending matters in court. Those ones, in fact, I would have also advocated that the current Parliament should do same. But that would be advocacy. And that is different from what the position of the law is. So I agree people are entitled to drop those conclusions, but these are not the same matters. These are different circumstances altogether. And when you look at it, if you compare them, you draw a you end up drawing a conclusion because they are not the same.
Right, not the same. Council Malm, what it is that Parliament is intending to do, and I'm returning to you on the matter in relation to what remedies possibly could lie for the former Chief Justice. She's filed her application. The legislative arm says we're proceeding nonetheless. Is there a course of action she can take in her attempt to stay the hand of the legislature and prevents the vetting and subsequent swearing in of the CJ nominee?
The only way possible is...
I'll come to you, Mr. Baffoe-Powers, on the same subject matter.
The only way possible I foresee is an injunction. And even with that, it must be heard timeously because there's no time. She doesn't have the luxury of time on her hands. And that is the only way possible because like I said, the jurisprudence that's around that relates to injunction application. The only exception deals with constitutional bodies when they are served. So if indeed you want to halt Parliament in its tracks from proceeding with the vetting, then Parliament must be served with it. Parliament, when served, the matter must be heard timeously. Because the service is not enough, but the determination of the application is what it is. Because at the consideration of the application, when it's served, the court would content itself with the right of the Chief Justice, who will suffer irreparable damage, the balance of inconvenience, and all of that. And you realize that should the vetting go on, and the Chief Justice nominee is confirmed, and in a theoretical situation or analysis, her leadership justice also wins, she comes out victorious with her application. It means that we are possibly going to have two parallel Chief Justices that will be in the fore, and that is going to create a constitutional problem. So it is everything because she has fought all this while. It's everything for a timeless application to be determined so that Parliament will not proceed, because we will not. We are not prepared to know the outcome of her application
Absolutely.
At the High Court. And so this is what I have to say on this.
And you as well. What she's going to file for an abridgment of time, Mr. Baffoe-Powers, so that this can be heard. Well, it does appear Mr. Baffoe-Powers is not with us on the phone lines yet, but perhaps I'll put that question to...
Yes. I mean, to abridgment of time, I mean, would help the matter, especially as the Parliament is about vetting him. I mean, that's the only option she could exercise. Anything less of it, Parliament would go on, and once the horse is out of the stable, it will be quite difficult to hold it to stand. So we only wait to see how the outcome would be.
And you have been on record. I recall somewhere last week we had this conversation quite extensively as to her decision to go to court again, and you saying that, look, it is within her right, and once somebody feels aggrieved that her rights have been violated, she proceeds to the High Court and seek that be corrected, amongst many other things. With how things continue to play out, do you still hold that position, and considering all things being equal, Parliament wanting to proceed with the vetting?
Yes, I mean, I still hold that position, that view, because what is happening to her leadership, it is unique in our democratic dispensation. I mean, we had the Ghana Bar Association versus Attorney General, which is popularly called the Aban case, where Justice Aban, there was an attempt to get him out and all of that. But, with the myriad of angles relating to her leadership and all of this, it is going to help with our constitutional law development. Just because as lawyers, in practice, we always refer to precedent, and judges as well, because when they are giving their decisions, they are delivering their decisions, they always refer to case law, because that is how structured our legal system is. So this would add up to our constitutional development in terms of matters that relate to the removal of Chief Justice under Article 146. I mean, it would further strengthen the position, whether or not Article 146 has flaws, which has become very evident. We all agree to an extent that Article 146 procedurally lags behind, and any legal system cannot exist as that. And I mean, over the months, I've been hard with jurisprudential analysis on Article 146 and the need to have it amended. And indeed, the leader of government at Parliament found wisdom in suggestions made, across board, that Article 146 needs to be looked at. So he mentioned on the floor of Parliament that he would come up with, or government would come up with, a regulation.
That's a constitutional instrument to guide the removal process.
Yes, that is true. Because Article 146 has its own inherent problems.
Do I have Austin Baffoe-Powers on the line, just so we can conclude this chapter? Yes, good to have you. I was asking the question of the remedies. Council has spoken to us about the abridgment of time, but perhaps what I would want to find out from you is whether or not you also agree with him that despite these developments in the case, and yes, she has the opportunity to file for an abridgment of time so that the courts can hear her application and try to see whether or not the hand of Parliament will be stayed. There are those who make the argument that, look, with how all of these things are going, perhaps it's best if all of this was let go, because it does appear the House will want to proceed and vet the Chief Justice nominee.
Marina, It's unfortunate, but like we said, Parliament will go ahead and vet Justice Baffoe-Bonnie. But like my learned brother just said, if she is minded, she has to go. She has to go back. I don't even think she has been communicated to regards to timeline or when the application will be heard. And if the communication had gone out, then she has to go back and get the period reduced, like he said, arrangement. It has to be a bit so that at least it will be shortened for the case to be heard on time. By which time, at least the vetting may be done, but she could still go ahead. And if the court hears it out and they make the determination that the injunction must hold, it will stop Parliament from approving. I mean, the plenary from approving the recommendation of the committee of the appointment committee. So, but it all depends on if the time the court will hear the thing. But this is what I believe. I think this is almost like a bottomless pit. It's a bottomless pit, and it will be difficult for. I don't see how the system will move, faster enough for the removed Chief Justice, particularly without issues affecting the appointment of Justice Baffoe-Bonnie. But be that as it may, I think she should continue fighting. It is worth fighting because I've maintained that whatever she is doing, sometimes you may not be the beneficiary, but you are setting down a precedent which will guide future generations. So sometimes you don't just cower in the face of opposition or injustice, or in the face of what some people will say intractable or insurmountable problems. You must keep fighting. Maybe she's fighting for the future. And I think legally, lawyers may know what to do. But as the position of the law is currently, Parliament must go ahead and get the Chief Justice nominee. And if the court does not make a determination on in the judge application, then that will be it. He will become Justice Baffoe-Bonnie will end up being approved by the plenary to become the next Chief Justice of the country. And we'll still see what happens. Marina.
Right. I'll just speak final thoughts, and we're moving away from this on a subject matter which is stoking quite the constitutional debate as to when a bill is passed in Parliament and it is deemed to have been passed and it's supposed to be transmitted to the presidency, and that transmission is happening, and in the midst of that transmission, the life of that parliament dies, whether or not that process is expected to be kick-started again. That's a conversation which is coming up quite strongly on the subject matter of the anti-LGBTQ plus bill. We're not going into the merits of the bill and whether or not it should be passed, but these are subject matters which, to some, should be headed towards the Supreme Court for an interpretation as to whether or not all of it is supposed to start off again. Let me start off with you briefly on that, and then we can wrap up for this morning, Mr. Bracco Powers. Where do you stand on it? That it must start all over again, or it is deemed to have been passed as per the Constitution, and so the only thing that must happen is that it should be taken back to the presidency for possible assent?
But I've heard some individuals, including elements from the opposition Patriotic Party, make that argument forcefully that because the parliament that passed that bill is no longer there, and the president couldn't assent to say the bill had died prematurely. And I was cringing to find the position where on which position of the law are they making that proposition? Because we know government is a continuum. Government is a continuous business. If there's a bill that has been legitimately, the word should be whether if the bill has been properly and legitimately passed. If the bill had been properly and legitimately passed by the previous parliament, I see no basis and no reason why the bill must be re-engineered or it must be reworked on so so that the president will assent to same. Like I said, you see, the reason why we are here is because Parliament slept. The minute the Supreme Court disposed of those cases, or even the minute the president did not assent to same within 14 days, Parliament was supposed to be at work. Because the position of the law is clear, that if the president is unable to assent to same within and must communicate same to Parliament within 14 days, what happens if the president does not communicate to Parliament within the 14 days? Does it mean Parliament will have to fold its hands and wait until the president assents to same? There are constitutional timelines. The position of the law says, when you read Article 106 down, it gives the position. When after 14 days you have not heard from the president, you must go to work. Parliament slept, and now the same Parliament wants us to allow them to re-engineer the bill. No, that will amount to waste of government resources. We are wasting with government resources and human material. Why do we start the whole bill again? Take the bill, dust it off, send it to the president, the current president, let him assent to say. There's no need. There's no basis. Is it, Mauna, we must be able to inject some level of confidence. Ghanaians must be able to confidently believe in our legislative process. Where lies the confidence and predictability and the seriousness? If you spend resources to make a bill, and because the president did not assent to it, you are saying that bill had died actually, and you are going to restart the process. What kind of argument is that? It is not sound, and they have to stop that. Why you make that kind of argument? It's because why in the Constitution?
Right.
Why in the Constitution did the say that the moment the Parliament now passes a particular bill, ends the tenure, and the bill was not really assented to by the president, that bill has died prematurely. Where in the Constitution did that proposition of the law make? I think they should stop embarrassing and disgracing us.
Right.
Those making those claims in Parliament, they should stop disgracing us. That is not the position of the law. The law is that government is a continuous business. And so, if we are to go by the argument, then there should be that the bills or the laws passed by the previous government died, the previous Parliament dies the minute that Parliament ends its tenure. All the laws we pass, it means that those laws should not function again in the country. If we are to sit with their argument, it's not a sound argument they should be making. Because it amounts to total disappointment to Ghanaians. I don't think we should subscribe to that argument, Mauna.
Right then, Council, I appreciate you joining us this morning. I just want to pick the final thoughts of Christian Malm Hesse as well on this debate. Does it, whether or not it should be going to the Supreme Court, or it is as clear as day, as Austin Bracco Powers tells us?
Yes, I mean, I align myself with his position. You see, the reason, this is how I see it. I mean, once, it starts from the floor, and it goes through various stages. The first reading, second reading, it goes to committee, comes back, amendments here and there, until finally it is passed, and then the final constitutional hurdle stops with the president to assent for it to become law. If indeed Parliament is of the opinion that the bill that it passed, there is no reason for it, or it has inherent flaws, Parliament, by its own rules, can deal with it, whether to set aside by way of repeal or revoke it entirely. Parliament, by its own rules, can deal with this particular bill passed, and for which they could come up, like I said, they could come up with some amendments to it or whatever. But if the same bill that had been passed is being reintroduced to Parliament to go through the whole process, then that is problematic, because it is needless, waste of time, and is it going to go through the process that they had already been through? I don't see the constitutional law reason in it.
Right.
And I believe that the president should be encouraged by his legal handlers to accept it or whatever. If it's not interested to also try to, he should let Ghanaians know. But I mean, to go through that same constitutional process is interesting.
I appreciate you both joining us this morning on the 3FM Sunrise Big Conversation. That's Christian Malm Hesse speaking to us as